Good evening, everyone. We are back with another Disney review, continuing our 100 Years of Wonder retrospective. And we're at number 40 today. And this is kind of an underrated classic. It has developed a bit of a cult following, which is great to hear. And this was one that I was really looking forward to in the retrospective, dipping back to it. And this is Atlantis, The Lost Empire, 2001 movie, directed by Gary Truesdale and Kirk Wise, the same directors as Hunchback of Notre Dame, which I've gone on record saying is my favorite Disney movie so far. Can they recapture the magic with this one? Well, I'm sure as we have our conversation, we will. It's sort of complicated in some ways, yes, and then in some ways, maybe not as much. I am joined once again with is the name displayed on the screen?
Well, I was going to say it's kind of like Van Halen's 1984, really, isn't it? It's kind of complicated.
And this might be the earliest Van Halen reference yet. We're just over a minute in, and it's already got one.
Well, to be fair, I was thinking that when I watched it, it was that because it was different. Like, because didn't they have the T-shirts as well? What was they had something on T-shirts. So basically, like the crew had T-shirts that said "More explosions, less songs." Something like that.
That's right. Was. That was the crew. Yeah, the crew had those shirts.
Yeah, it was something like that. The quote was because it was supposed to be, I'd say, different. It wasn't like massively like a big change, but it did feel like the first of the modern Disney movies, not the modern, but modern for our childhood, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen like almost like a slow spiral effect of lack of songs in Disney films. Tarzan has songs, has a lot of songs, but none of the characters. One of the characters sings like a fraction of one of those songs, and that's it. It's weird to say Fantasia doesn't have songs because, of course, it's based on classical music, so it has a lot of music in it. But you know what I mean? It's not sort of sing-songy, the classical archetypal Disney formula. And then Emperor's New Groove was going to be a return to form of the big bombastic musical epic with, you know, the villain song and your love song and everything. And then because that idea was scrapped, it kind of boiled down to just two songs in that, one of which is at the beginning and then one of which is a credit song, which is like the pop song anyway. Whereas this one, you just have a pop song in the credits. It is very much, and they went in with this idea that they just wanted it to be a straight up action adventure film, which is bold. It's definitely a bold idea. I don't know if people were sort of ready for this at the time. Maybe well, you've got a Back to the Future reference. This is my Back to the Future reference right here. It's almost like when Martin McFly says, I guess you guys aren't ready for it yet, but your kids are going to love it. I think this definitely found its crowd many years later on home video then cult following.
I think it is one of those that kind of went under the radar a little bit.
Oh,
it's one of those where if you think Disney movies, kind of Treasure Planet as well. Like if you were to say to someone, name like loads of Disney movies, they'd be like, Snow White, Frozen, of course, or Sleeping Beauty, all that kind of shit. But Atlantis and Treasure Planet would be way down the list for them to think about. As you say, bold moves, different. But like I say, I feel like it's the first of that modern. Not today's modern, but modern from when we were kids. Like, it's that first in that Lilo and Stitch kind of era, that Treasure Planet, that kind of bit more sci-fi. I mean, those three are all kind of sci-fi. It's a bit, a little bit of a change, which it's good. I think Lilo and Stitch probably became bigger out of the three because of Stitch. Cutesy little character.
Marketing,
the marketing was probably one of the top, which we'll go into obviously when we talk about that one. But like the thing about this, it didn't have the cliches of like you get every movie, even like Lightyear, you have his little kitten socks. You always have the little like, what we're going to market as a toy, what we're going to do this didn't really have that.
No, it didn't. I mean, the only things that I can remember, I mean, there was the McDonald's tie-ins, and they had a few sort of deals like that, as most Disney films tend to have. There was a PlayStation game based on this, and that's about as far as it went, really. So I feel like they did put a fair bit into the marketing for this, but it was released at a super competitive time because around about this time, 2001, audiences' attentions were kind of shifting more towards computer-generated animated films, and around about this time, this was released at the same time as Shrek, which is a terrible thing to release up against because, Shrek is incredible and one of the best animated films ever. And if you're up against that, Shrek's probably going to win. Around that time as well, I'm just reading here, you had Lara Croft Tomb Raider. That would have been the Angelina Jolie movie, Fast and the Furious, and Dr. Dolittle too. So essentially there was a lot of competition fairly popular franchises and characters and things like that would have definitely taken the shine away from Disney. Have released their big new film. It's Atlantis. Oh, what's that about? Atlantis, the Lost Empire. I think it's a strange idea to do, and yeah, it's just going to get overshadowed, as of course is what happened. It was kind of a lackluster box office return, really. So it's budgeted between 90 to 120 million. Then you got to think about all the merchant, the marketing and stuff on top of that. You're probably looking at around 200 million maybe total, just shy of it, and it made 186 back. So it wasn't the hit they expected it to be.
Yeah, it pretty much broke even, really, didn't it? Just under, but it was a kind of, it didn't do awfully, like lose loads, but it did that mediocre level, whatever, that, just kind of, like I say, flew under the radar. It's never going to be held as bad, but it's never going to be held as the top.
Yeah. And I do think that is just because it feels very unlike a Disney movie in many. It almost feels like you're watching this is going to be like a really weird way of saying it, but it feels like you're watching like a live action adventure movie that just happens to be done in animation. You've had like a linguist on board for this, Mark Okrand, who constructed an Atlantean language, and the level of research and the cast of characters, the fact that you don't have music and they had to allow the characters, there was dialogue scenes in there where you get to know about the character's personality and their wants and needs. It plays much more like a straight sort of like live action adventure movie where it doesn't fit the Disney formula. And I think maybe that's also a reason that it turned people off as well. And we've said this throughout the retrospective. There's always that one Disney movie that feels very unlike a Disney movie. Black Cauldron's an example, right?
To be fair, there's a comparison with Black Cauldron, because Black Cauldron was a PG when it came out, and so was this. They were the first two.
Oh, was it?
I think so, yeah. I think because Black Cauldron, I think, is now.
Mine says you on the cover.
Well, this is what I thought, but I did read that, so I don't know if it's been
classified.
Yeah, reclassified. Sorry, I don't know if it's been reclassified or anything, but I did read that, so I feel like there was a comparison, but as I say, I can't remember exactly what it was when it came out.
Say the first one on my DVDs that's classified as a PG is Bolt, which is number 48, and then it dips back to a U with Princess and the Frog, and then we're pretty much PGs from here on in after that.
Views don't really exist anymore, do they?
No, it just always tends to be. Yeah, I can't remember the last time that I've seen anything classified as a U, genuinely. Like, I think it is just the standard now is PG. We've had a couple of comments, which one I just want to address here. JDude93 says, I'm surprised you skipped Dinosaur. So we're doing the UK Disney animated classics list, or the Disney canon as it's often referred to. That's in the US list, and that would be normally where Atlantis is. So number 40 in the US. No, sorry, number 39, isn't it? Number 39 is Disney's Dinosaur, and number 40 in the US list is Emperor's New Groove. That's not the same as our list, so we're going by what we've got, I'm afraid. So you've got Atlantis tonight. No Disney Dinosaur. Sorry about that. And Brian Emery, back once again, says, I wish this would be a world in Kingdom Hearts 4. You and me both. This would be absolutely perfect for a world in Kingdom Hearts.
The thing is, it would be great because of the story as well, and the fact that they've basically got their heart of their world. They've got their crystal, which is, is their life form. It is their world. And that's like having the heart of the world, and then it connects to the people, and they could have a proper subplot with the whole, how the people of this world are connected to their world even more than everywhere else. And like that would, I think that would work really well. And plus, it's a crystal, and Kingdom Hearts is partly Final Fantasy as well. And Final Fantasy was, built on crystals and that sort of stuff. So that would be great. It's one of the ones that I think would work very well. Whether they'll do it, I don't know. You
could have the Heartless sort of corrupting the heart of Atlantis, and that's why you have Heartless appearing in Atlantis, and they could look like the ones when Kida and the rest of the Atlanteans wear those tribal masks and they've got the spears. I imagine the Heartless could maybe look like that, and they're corrupted versions of Atlanteans. Maybe you could go down that route if you wanted to, and you've got to purify the world. You've got to seal the keyhole if you do that whole thing. And the heart of Atlantis would 100% be the keyhole to the world. I really want to see it because you could have vehicle sections in there. I mean, just looking at the background, look how amazing, like the concept of this world is, and all the places you could explore. It could be free roam, it could be wonderful. NPCs walking around, Atlanteans doing what they do, and I
Do you
need
know
this
what?
to be a world.
It's one of the ones. The movie itself is very Star Wars as well. Like there's a lot of Star
Yeah,
Wars-esque sort of things about it.
sound
And I
effects
think
as well. I think there's a lot of
yeah.
yeah.
And the thing is, if they were to make it a world in Kingdom Hearts, it would be kind of their way of like, because loads of people, idiots, I will say, want Star Wars in Kingdom Hearts because, it's Disney. It's not Disney, but they talk about that, and this will be, if they put this in it, I guess it would kind of be like, well, look, we're not getting Star Wars in it, but this is a close thing with the ship. Because the thing that reminded me as well with their ship, in episode 1, where they're in the ship and they're like, there's always a bigger fish. That, it reminded me about the ship under the water and everything. And I think there could be a really cool, thing to do where you're battling. And like, I think that would work really well. And it would be the kind of like, look, we can't get Star Wars, but let's do this. And it's kind of like when they put Big Hero 6, they're not going to put Marvel in it, but it's their kind of,
Yeah, this would honestly be top of my list. I keep saying we should do that video, and we probably will at some point. We'll do like a top 5. Like I'll do a top 5, and you do a top 5. So we'll essentially have a combined list of a top 10 worlds that we'd love to see in another Kingdom Hearts game. This would probably be close to the top of my list, in all honesty, because I think
we both have the same number 1 though.
Yes, yeah. But we've talked about it loads of times, so it's probably not even going to be a surprise for us what's on each other's list. But I think we are in agreement on a lot of what we'd like to see from the next.
To be fair, on the topic of Kingdom Hearts with this though, there's a really cool Back to the Future reference. So Leonard Nimoy is obviously he plays the King of Atlantis in this, and he plays Xehanort, obviously in Birth by Sleep.
Oh, yeah.
But also, obviously, when Leonard Nimoy passed in Kingdom Hearts 3, when they recast him, they got Christopher Lloyd to play Xehanort. So
yeah.
that I thought that was that was a really cool kind of like it's a really cool connection that they have.
Yeah.
But also Leonard Nimoy sounds exactly like Xehanort on this. Like he does the same voice. It's but I thought that was a really cool connection. The fact it's Christopher Lloyd, it's Back to the Future, and yeah.
He's got such a cool voice, Leonard Nimoy, and I was reading about it. A lot of the crew of this, when Nimoy was in the recording studio, like they would all just gather around and just watch him perform because he just had that like impact. And he's no stranger to animation. I mean, Star Trek had an animated series back in the day, which I'm assuming he did the voice for. I actually haven't watched any old school Star Trek, but I know that there was an animated series, and I'm assuming just all the cast still came back for that. But there was an animated film, which I don't know if you've seen. It started off live action, and then it went into animation. It was called The Page Master, and it had Macaulay Culkin, and he was this very scared kid. Like he was all like, oh, well, statistically, if I try and climb a tree, like 60% of kids fall out and like break a limb. Like I'm not going to do that. He was very straight as an arrow and didn't want to do anything and was really timid and scared. And he goes in the library. Here you go. The librarian is Christopher Lloyd. He's back again. And he says like, oh, I'm going to recommend you read a book from the horror section and a book from the fantasy section and the romance. Actually, I can't remember. It's 3 genres anyway. And then when he goes into the book, and then it becomes an animated film. Leonard Nimoy plays Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and he has a great voice for that character. Like so much, just really raspy kind of voice to him.
Yeah,
I think he used to smoke a lot as well, Leonard Nimoy. But it like the presence he brings, even the character in this, just from the voice alone, take out the fact that he's like a regal character, but the fact that they cast him as that was just perfect cast in my opinion. I think all of the voice cast in this is amazing. A lot of them had voices where I was like, where do I recognize that person for? Like Helga Sinclair, who's the sort of the sidekick to the bad guy. I was like, I swear I've heard that voice before. Even Commander Rourke, the villain, that military voice, and I kept thinking, is it oh god, what's his name? He plays the commander in Ants. He was in Superman the movie, played Lex Luthor.
Oh,
Gene Hackman.
That's it.
I thought it was Gene Hackman at first, and I was thinking, no, I'm thinking of Ants, but similar type of character role,
Yeah, I know. As soon as I thought in my head Gene, and as soon as you said it, I went to say Gene Wilder, and I went no.
Gene. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about the visual style to this then before we get into the characters, because this has probably
it's
one of the most distinctive styles out of any Disney
film.
I think.
I love the visual style. I think it looks great. It's very Road to El Dorado, very, you know, that kind of era, like obviously that era, it's that time that it came out. What I don't like is, you know, when you see promotional art for it, and it's like they did caricatures of everyone in the sense of it. That's what it looked like to me when they did the, you know, promotional art. So if you go on like Disney Plus and you see like the preview, it's like a weird drawing that just is kind of over the top what they did in the movie, which I didn't really get, and I thought it just looked kind of shit. But the actual for itself, the movie, I think it looked really cool, and I love it, and I think it's great because sometimes you do need that whole not a cliche Disney looking movie. Sometimes you need that breakaway, as much as, we all love, familiarity and all that shit. It sometimes is cool just to have that one that's that little bit different,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And I think if I sort of cast my mind back to all the ones that we reviewed so far, my favorite animation is, unsurprisingly, during the Disney Renaissance. Stuff like Lion King, Hunchback of Notre Dame, the super detailed. You're just looking at it, and it's that beautiful mesh of some 3D elements in there with CGI, but a lot of traditional animation, and the lighting looks absolutely gorgeous. With this one, dare I say, like the actual traditional animation part of this film kind of looks very simplified. There's not like a huge amount of detail in the characters. Their fingers, for example, they're quite square, and there's like a triangle for the fingernail. It all looks very simplistic. It's almost they based the visual style off comic book artist who was one of the production designers on the film, Mike Mignola, who is famous for doing the Hellboy comics, and they really liked his style, and they went with that for the characters. But doing this retrospective and watching them again, I'm finding that I'm having so much more of an appreciation for those like oddball animated choices, stuff in like Fantasia 2000, Rhapsody in Blue, the very sketchy, fast-paced kind of over-exaggerated style. Absolutely love that. Let's think of it like this one, for example, and I'm trying to think of it. Sleeping Beauty, when we went to that one, and it was all like the medieval tapestry kind of thing. Like, I like those different decisions.
I did think of that with Sleeping Beauty. I did have that comparison in my head because there's a lot of like the characters are quite triangular, quite boxy. Like there's a lot of that in terms of like maybe not the main characters, but when you get like environments, that sort of stuff. And I think that is one comparison I did have in my head. But yeah.
And this one definitely did push for. I think actually at the time, this Disney movie had more than any previous traditionally animated films. This had the most CGI in there, which I was surprised about because I still thought that Fantasia 2000 would have that title. Like in my mind, that film even still feels like it's got more CGI than this one. But actually, I suppose no. This, you've got all the action scenes in this one with Leviathan and the Ulysses and Atlantis itself and the stone giants at the end. And so, yeah, probably cumulatively, I feel like this was one of the longest Disney films we've done in a while as well. Like, I was watching it and I was thinking, because it's 96 minutes. And I mean, there's probably been an example of a longer. Well, Fantasia for a start. The first Fantasia is like 2 hours.
The reason is as well is because so much happens. It's so plot heavy. It's an action movie. I think that's one reason it feels longer because there's a lot to unpack in it.
Yeah, and again, it's sort of that comparison to what you get in like a live action adventure movie. That would probably be the length of one. It's on the longer end for a Disney animated classic. Apparently, the original draft of the script was going to be even longer. I think it clocked in at like 2 hours or something like that. And when I was watching the film, there was a part. It's the traveling montage. It's where they've just escaped the Leviathan, and it's sort of that journey to get to the entrance to Atlantis, and there's all the different obstacles they have to get through. They've got like that driller that gets through things, and then they have to blow something up to get through. And then you've got the Firefly segment where it sets the camp on fire. Apparently there was going to be loads of those segments, and it probably wouldn't have been a traveling montage. You would have actually have seen all of those different sort of like legs to the journey, which I guess you don't need. By removing it and having it as a montage, it does make the movie move at a much faster pace and gets us to Atlantis a lot quicker. I'm trying to think, if you had all those sort of episodic segments, it would have felt a lot like Peter Jackson's King Kong, where it's just like, oh, can we just get to King Kong already? It's like, oh no, we've got the dinosaur stampede, and oh, we got this, and we've got this thing on the boat, and it's like, come on. So I think it was probably the right decision. And we love a good montage as well, so it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was developed fine. I think eventually what we got was there's not really anything I'd change about it. That's the thing. It's not one of those where I think maybe this could be done better. I think everything that was done, it was done well. It was quite Indiana Jones like as well. It was quite, it's kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark in the sense of where you look at it and would you really change anything about that movie? No, there's not a single thing I'd change. Would I say it's a perfect movie? No, it's not a 10 out of 10 amazing, like, oh my God, it's the best movie ever. Same as Atlantis, but I wouldn't change a thing. I think it was handled exactly how it should have been done.
One thing I'm really disappointed about, at least this DVD release, I'm not sure about the one that you saw on Disney Plus. They might have changed this for the Blu-ray. This was not 5:1, sorry, but the aspect ratio. I'm trying to see if it says on here what the technical name for it is. Full frame format, 1:33. It's where you just have the box in the middle of the screen and like huge black bars on the left and the right, and it's like a very shrunken in image in the middle.
Yeah, it wasn't like that.
So this film was apparently, and it's one of the few Disney films that were produced in 35mm anamorphic format, so basically widescreen, because it was trying to ape off like the old action films that were released in CinemaScope. So you have this huge part of the frame that's cut off on my version, which if you have like the full widescreen version, you get even more, well, there's more animation, there's more on the screen, essentially. Now, if they released it in cinemas originally like that, we actually haven't talked about the first time that we saw this film. I do remember seeing this film in the cinema when it came out. I want to say I was at Butlins. I think I mentioned about Emperor's New Groove. I wasn't sure if I'd watch that in the cinema at Butlins because it came out in December. So I probably didn't with that one. With this one, I absolutely remember watching this at Butlins. It was a tiny, dinky little cinema, and I think I did see it. But there wasn't much hullabaloo about it at the time. There really wasn't. But I am wondering now if when I went to see it, would it have been in that widescreen format, which I expect it probably would be. But unfortunately, on my DVD copy at least, I don't get that. So I don't know if that's something that was different on your Disney Plus version.
Yeah, it was widescreen.
No, gotta watch it. Gotta rewatch it.
Do you know what though? Widescreen is weird because widescreen I get, but it always leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Only because I remember the first time I ever noticed what widescreen was. I'm not saying it's the first time I ever watched widescreen, because the first time I watched widescreen I was probably small and I don't remember. But it was Toy Story 1. I bought the video and it said now in widescreen, and across the top it said widescreen. You know how like you get the PlayStation games, it says PlayStation Hits, and you're kind of in that whole like, I just wanted the original one though. You don't like the fact that it's silver and it says PlayStation Hits or anything like that. Oh no, platinum, that was it. The PS2 ones were platinum, weren't they? Mm-hmm. It was kind of like that. Like I got Toy Story 1 on video because I got that on video, I think, after I got Toy Story 2. I can't remember. But anyway, the point is I got it on video and it said widescreen. It had it written in silver. And I remember it annoyed me because I was like, yeah, but now you just got widescreen written on the top. I don't like it. So every time a movie's widescreen, I always remember that day, and it really annoys me.
Yeah. I remember getting in, my uncle like just doesn't get it, and I get into arguments with him all the time about widescreen and why certain films they that's an artistic choice of the director to film it in widescreen. That's how it's meant to be presented. Every time he puts a DVD and he says like, oh, I've only got like half a frame, so he hits the zoom in button on his remote to blow the picture up to full screen. He goes, oh, now I've got a full picture. And I'm like, no, you've got less of a picture because you're losing information. He's like, no, it isn't, because I'm like, I can't keep having this argument every single time. It's so frustrating. You just have to give up at the end. It's like, just fine, okay, yeah, you've got a full picture, great.
Just sliced off the bottom and the top of your TV.
Yeah. But now I know that there is, it's still available to watch in widescreen. I definitely want to watch this film again because I think it would really benefit from that. A lot of the Disney execs were against the idea of releasing it in widescreen. I don't know if they had to. Well, I mean, there's just more information on screen. I think Sleeping Beauty had the same issue back in the day. It was much more expensive to do. Animators were kind of unsure because now characters that would normally be off screen, they're still going to be on screen. So we still need to animate them doing something. So it's just more animation time, and you have to think about framing and blocking of certain scenes. Apparently the quoted as probably one of the most difficult scenes in the history of Disney animation is the final scene of this movie. And it's where Kida and Milo climb on top of the tower, and you get that the camera pulls back and it keeps pulling back from them on the tower. And you just get the amazing wide shot of Atlantis. And then I think that like hammerhead shark thing flies into the camera, doesn't it? That's the final shot of the movie.
What does that remind me of, though? It reminds me of some other movie that did that. There's probably quite a lot, though, isn't there? Where they pan and shot off the whole fucking thing.
Yeah.
But there's something it reminded me of. I can't remember, but it probably just happens a lot.
Because the directors in the very end of Hunchback of Notre Dame had the camera pulling out as well from Quasimodo in the crowd, and it pulled out. And apparently they went back to that and said that they really struggled with that, and they were quoted as saying it lacked depth. But because of how over the years since making that film, that multi-plane technique where you can just layer loads of different background images and foreground images and move them all at, independently of each other, that had advanced so much. So it was like that ending sequence of Hunchback on steroids now, and they could achieve cinematically what they probably wanted to with that. And the animation's absolutely gorgeous in this one. It really is. I love that they built like a little scale model as well of the Ulysses. I love the design of that ship. I mean, this was based on stuff like Journey to the Center of the Earth and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, those Jules Verne novels. And the Ulysses in this, it's great. And another one of my favorite shots as well. And it shows how far Disney have come at this point in terms of creating these cinematic shots that they perhaps couldn't do with just traditional animation. It's where where the Ulysses first dives, and you get this amazing sort of like pan around the Ulysses as it's diving under the water. And you just see the traditional animation of Milo in the window sort of pressed up against the glass, like looking out, as the rest is 3D, the rest is CGI. And you get that amazing score, that amazing like call to adventure fanfare.
This is the thing. I think you were saying to me earlier how like the music's amazing. I don't think much of it stands out to me that much. It's not like there's some movies they have great music. And this just isn't what. I'm not saying it's not good, but this isn't one where I think, oh, this is great here. This is great here. This is great here. It's just kind of is.
I see. No, I totally disagree. So James Newton Howard, fantastic composer, probably one of my favorites. He was hired for this film based on his score for Disney's Dinosaur, which is also a score that I think is incredible too. This was made around about the same time as that. So there's a few little composers often have a signature style or like a little musical motif, which you kind of hear in a lot of their works, especially works that are made very, very close to each other. A good example of that is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets and Attack of the Clones, which were released the same year. There is a segment of music which is identical, and it is identical. There's a video on YouTube you can watch. It's over the Quidditch match, and it's also used over the Coruscant speeder chase where they're chasing after Zam Wessel. It's the same music. So I know that composers do that. So there are some bits in the score where I'm like, oh, that does sound like Disney's Dinosaur, but I love the music to this one. It's so many different styles to it. You have that call to adventure, that sort of like ba 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 ba, and it's like really victorious when they dive. But then you have the Atlantis theme and the instruments as well. I was watching this film and I was thinking James Cameron ripped Avatar off from this movie. There are so many. Well, he ripped Avatar off from a lot of things: Pocahontas, Dances with Wolves, Fern Gully. And
Avatar's a shit film.
Avatar is a shit film. I agree.
Well,
it's a very pretty shit film. Yeah. But this one with like the instruments that they used, it's very sort of like ethnic. You got like chimes and bells and gongs, and it really does help create this world of Atlantis. It's the conceptual design of this film and the actual world building itself. They put so much effort into that, and it really shows it. And I never really appreciated that before until watching it again. I will say, I genuinely can't remember the last time that I watched it. It was probably when I went to see it in cinemas. Actually, I probably watched it on video at some point because I did have it on video, but it was never one that I watched multiple times.
I think I watched it. I didn't see it in cinema, but I saw it. I think when Treasure Planet came out, I feel like I saw them kind of back to back. I can't remember exactly. It might have been just before, but I saw them around similar sort of times. Whenever I think Atlantis, I think Treasure Planet. Whenever I think Treasure Planet, I think Atlantis. I think they're very, very, very similar movies.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And what else was there? There was something I was going to say. you know when you lose your train of thought halfway through a sentence, just like there was a purpose to this whole thing. It'll come back. Just keep going, and I'll randomly shout it out.
Well, you mentioned the sound earlier as well. You said it's very sort of Star Warsy, and the team at Skywalker Sound were actually hired to do the sound production for this film, which I believe it won some kind of award for. It wasn't like an Oscar or anything like that. I think it was the Annie Awards or something like that, and it won for sound production. And there were moments where they've got those fish machines that they ride around on at the end. It did sound very much like the pod racers starting up to me, and there was some Star Wars. You know, when you've watched Star Wars so much, like, you know, every line of dialogue, you know, every sound you can pinpoint in the movie. There was definitely some Star Wars sound effects in there. I don't know if it was like the Millennium Falcon trying to start up when it has that like that jittery kind of turning the ignition kind of sound, and definitely some of the pod racing, like the revving of those machines. Maybe they did create everything from whole cloth for this movie, but there were definitely some aspects there. We've just had a comment from BRock251 that says, "The Prince of Egypt."
That is a movie, yes.
That is a movie. That happens to be one of my favorite animated films of all time. I would put it in my top 3. Maybe number 2, actually. I absolutely adore that film. It's not a Disney film. It is a DreamWorks film.
Kind of like Ants.
It is an incredible film. I agree. Has your train of thought rolled back into the station?
Is Sinbad not Disney? DreamWorks. Is it DreamWorks? Yeah, thought so. Because again, it's that whole era. But this is the thing. So I was going to say. So I don't remember specifically the first time I ever saw it, but I know it was around that time. I remember I got Treasure Planet. I feel like it came in a cereal box as well, like a demo of the game on PC or something. I don't know.
They did have a deal with Kellogg's. It says.
Yeah,
so maybe.
And it was like a little square disc. You know, remember when you got those discs, like little square ones, rectangle discs, all that kind of bollocks. And it was something like that. And I feel like it was around that time. So Sinbad had a flannel for Sinbad in the shower. It was great, you know. Just Sinbad, Treasure Planet, Atlantis. Like, I feel there was a merge of all that stuff together, which was, just very similar. Weirdly, though, I didn't see Road to El Dorado until, like, last year. That was the first time I ever saw it. But there was a merge of all those sort of movies. So I don't remember specifically the first time I saw it. I just remember as a kid watching it, and I probably saw it once, whereas recently I've seen bits. Whereas so this time watching it was probably the first fully in a long time, a long time.
No, same. And for all intents and purposes, it wasn't quite like rewatching it for the first time, but in some ways it was, like, because it's been a long time. I still remember the characters' names, I still remember the plot and everything like that, but some of the specifics.
You know what? It's kind of like I was thinking about last night. I was reading. I was basically reading Red Dragon, and I thought, I haven't seen in ages Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? Because I remember the whole thing, but I was like, when I watch this again, because I will at some point soon, because reading Red Dragon, I'll probably read that and then watch Silence of the Lambs and read that or whatever. But anyway, point is, I was going to do that, and I just thought, it will be kind of like a first time watching away because it's been so long. But to the point where, like, you see bits, you go, oh yeah, I remember that a little bit. Like, kind of like this. Like, you remember little bits, but then because it's been so long as well, there are bits you're just like, that's so cool. And it's literally just, you don't even remember it because it's been so long, but it just, I think it had that really great feeling about it, and it didn't lose any spark. It didn't lose any sort of, like, I didn't sit there and think, there's a reason I haven't watched it. I just thought, this was enjoyable to go back to. Would I go back to it over and over and over again? Not over and over and over again, but at some point in my life, yeah, I'll probably watch it again at some point, just not in the next 10 years.
Well, that was going to be my next question to you, because, I mean, we're both kind of in the same boat with this one. We haven't watched this one in a long time. Now, why is that? Because this is a great film. This is a great animated film. It's, the world building's astounding and everything like that. But what is it about this film that doesn't keep making us come back to it like we would with, say, I don't know, Aladdin or Hercules or Lion King?
It's like, it's like I'm a fan of Joe Satriani, but I don't go back to his stuff over and over again because I like him and he's great and he's an amazing guitar player, and there's some stuff I'm like, dude, listen to this, or I'll listen to it. This is amazing, but I ain't gonna go back to it for another few months because it's just. It's not. I'm saying it's not my vibe because it is, and it's great, and it's a great movie. It's just like I say, it's one of those. It flies under the radar of not Sorry, I thought something smacked on my wall. I was like, it's one of those of not like a bad movie. It doesn't fly under the radar as being bad, but it doesn't go above and beyond of, oh my God, you should go back for this or this. It's a good watch. You're going, yeah, that was a good movie.
Yeah.
But, like Sausage Party, for example, another movie, very, very different movie, but another movie that like you watch and you're like, that's great. There's no flaws in it. But do you go back? It's one of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been trying to put my finger on why it is, and like I love all the characters in this. I think the writing's really solid, and the character building, this sort of like ensemble cast that they have, the actual design of Atlantis and the history to it and the culture really, really comes through in the film. The music and the sound design, that adventure, it's good. Like it's a great film, and it feels like a good action adventure film. But it doesn't really go beyond that for me. I don't know if it's because there's no sort of like deep thematic material in there for me. I think ultimately what it comes down to, and sort of where the film drops off a little bit for me, is right when we find that Rourke, unsurprisingly, is the bad guy. And the rest of the ensemble cast at that point are all in it together, because it just becomes like another capitalist film. And it becomes like another, this is where I say like Avatar, you have like the imperialistic, machine-based evil man coming to this natural world, and we want to destroy it, and we want to reap the benefits of it for financial gain. And I think it's, I mean, that is an important story to tell. Of course it is. So many films have done it, but it feels a little bit, it feels like we were building to more than just this. And now you've got this really generic bad guy. There you go. There's another bad guy. Like Shan Yu, some people don't remember him from Mulan, but at least he was intimidating for me. Like if someone said like Commander Rourke, I'd be like, who? Oh yeah, the guy from Atlantis. Yeah, he just wanted money. And I'm like, everyone's motive's the same. It's a shame, because before that he goes around every character. One of my favorite scenes in the film, a testament to great writing, it's the campfire scene. And you get a bit of everyone's character. They all exchange stories, and it feels like you would on like a, like an expedition, like a team going out. It's just, getting to know each other. So what's the deal with you then? What were you doing before this whole thing? And you've got Vinny, who wants to open a flower shop, and Audrey wants to, with her dad, open like a new garage and everything like that. You go through all the characters like that, and then it just seems so trite when it's just like, oh yeah, we all want money, and money's good, and man is evil, and it doesn't go beyond that. And that's the whole ending of your film.
The
basically,
reason you go back to movies or video games is, I mean, to be fair, I was going to say music, but I guess that's an anomaly in this, just because, not because the music's bad, but again, because this isn't like a big reason for me to be like, oh, this is amazing. But like, you go back because of certain characters as well, and you're like, oh, I love this character. Is there a character in this that's like, oh, I love this character? Or are they all just kind of like, yeah, they're good, but that's it?
Yeah, and I guess it is in that way, because if you say like, oh, the character of Miss Packard or Audrey or Mole, they're all good and they all work in the film, and it is this sort of like ragtag group of people going on this adventure, and they're all fun. They all have great personality, great voice acting, but there's just something kind of, I'll say, nondescript, because we get a lot of character for this. Is why it's so difficult to pin down. But
kind of like the opposite of Pocahontas, isn't it? Pocahontas really sold well on, the I say that the
music,
characters.
The music was huge for that.
Yeah, the music was, but I say the quirky, fun characters, whereas this didn't have that. It was all just a basic.
Everything's played straight, and that's fine. But
Pocahontas did that. But Pocahontas had, like, as I said, there was much depth to a lot of stuff, but I think it had that quirkiness about it with the characters. So there's a lot more memorable, like, oh, this character was this and did this. Whereas this, they're all, like you say, played. It plays straight. It does the whole. They don't look the same, but they've all got the same look, if that makes sense. Whereas things like Pocahontas and stuff, there's a certain style to everything, and it's like every character had a very, like, right, let's spend time on this one, let's spend time on this one. Whereas Atlantis was very, we got this one, and this guy's evil, and this guy's good, and we're gonna do this, and da 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 da. Kind of like South Park, with the one they take all their clothes off and like shave their head and stuff, and they all look exactly the same. Similar to that, in the same of they've all got that kind of look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's because the film plays it very straight and, dare I say, adult. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I think it works for this film, but I think it does add to the fact that it does sort of dip below the radar a little bit. Maybe Treasure Planet's also guilty of that a little bit. Now, Treasure Planet's got the slightly added benefit that it is an adaptation of the Robert Louis Stevenson Treasure Island. It's just updated and in space. So we know these characters. We know, Jim Hawkins. We know Long John Silver, and these names have permeated throughout literature, and we might have seen other adaptations as well. Whereas this one being its own thing probably adds to the obscurity of it a little bit more. And made it dip below the radar. I don't know. I think it's an interesting conversation to have, because when I say like, the characters are nondescript and non-memorable, I really genuinely like the writing of this. I like the characters in this film, and it is a really fun group of characters. But to be honest, it doesn't have that timeless quality to it, I guess, like a Beauty and the Beast would, or a Snow White would, and maybe is it the traditional fairy tale thing? I don't even know if it's that,
it's very of its time.
The Renaissance, like you could say that Pocahontas isn't a traditional, like Hunchback of Notre Dame isn't. Hercules,
yeah, but
they're way more memorable.
It's very of its time as well. If it was to be released today, it just wouldn't do well. Like, it's very of its time. If we said that about a couple of movies, like what would they be like being released today? It would do well, it would do this, but it's very of its time. It's kind of like when Star Wars came out, right? If something else did that before, and let's take Star Wars out of the equation, pretend Star Wars never existed in a horrible world. But like, let's put Star Wars, right? That's going to release it today. It just would have been like, cool, because we would have already had something by then, kind of like that. It's kind of like it worked well for 2001, whereas now it's like it would just be another kind of cool, and it would be very missed. Kind of like Bolt. Who remembers Bolt, really?
Yeah, well, I've never seen it.
I've seen it, and again, the thing is, I watched it closer to because I saw Atlantis again, back to like probably 2001, 2002 maybe. Whereas Bolt I saw in probably 2008, something like that, whenever it came out. So it's just closer, but I remember less about it. So it would become another one, like that. So it is very of its time.
Yeah. We had a couple of comments. Bath Time says, "Hi Chris, off topic, but Alien Romulus reaction and Lost 20-year anniversary news." So I haven't seen Alien Romulus yet. I have watched a bunch of reviews on it, most of which haven't been that stellar. A lot of people say it's sort of paint by numbers Alien. I've seen some reviews that say it starts off interesting and then just kind of falls down into typical Alien tropes. There's a lot of callbacks and lines that you've seen from the previous ones. I know that a character awkwardly says, "Get away from her, you bitch," because remember, we did that in Aliens. And Aliens 2 movies for me. Alien 3 has some alright moments. Alien Resurrection's terrible, but kind of charming in a Batman and Robin. This is terrible, but kind of entertaining kind of way.
I disagree with Batman and Robin. But to be fair, I was going to go see Alien recently. I never got around to it in the end, so I probably will at some point.
Yeah, I mean, the other Alien films, Prometheus was absolutely dog shit. Like, the trailers for that looked so good when it first came out, and absolutely abysmal film. Alien Covenant was maybe even worse than Prometheus. And now with so many failed attempts, and now we've got this one, and it's just, can we just, some Terminator needs to die, Predator needs to die, this needs to die, Star Wars, you know what I'm going to say, Star Wars needs to die. Some franchises just need.
I feel like, again, as much as I love Kingdom Hearts, it should have died with 3. It should have. They should not have, like, as much as I love it, and I won't go into any more, but the ending was great, and it should have stopped there. It was amazing. But again, we won't go on to Kingdom Hearts because you haven't seen it, played it.
And in terms of Lost 20-year anniversary news, I haven't rewatched any of the episodes yet. I do want to. Now, initially, I can probably still do a talk. I can remember it well enough in my head, to just talk about probably my experiences watching the show and the speculation around it as I was watching it and my thoughts on the ending. So I can do sort of like a general overview. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have time to watch like 108 episodes and go through all of Lost again. But I can still remember a lot of the main players and the main episodes that stick out in my mind. What I will do, though, I'll probably do a watch party of the first 2 episodes. So was it Pilot Part 1 and Pilot Part 2? I will do a rewatch of those, and we can all do a live rewatch and talk about it and see how well the first 2 episodes hold up. So we can do that. We can
Do you
do
know
that.
what you should do as a watch party, right? You should get however many, like you should get people go, right, who's coming to the watch party, right? And everyone goes, me, me, me. And whoever says me, you should get that many chairs out and put that person's name on it and give everyone a bowl of popcorn. That's what you should do.
What, a bowl of digital popcorn? Because
no, an actual bowl of popcorn. So put a seat out for every person that says me.
Oh wow, okay.
Next to you, so there'll be another few seats, and then each seat has a bowl of popcorn in it.
Mm.
And then every now and then you can just refer to them as the people and talk to the chairs. That would be cool. That's what I would do.
Oh, bath time. Sorry, there's a few more comments coming in. It says Avatar is the same film as Aliens, but told from the aliens' point of view. I still think that would be a much better movie than Avatar turned out. To be fair, I find Atlantis a lesser crime from Plato than his idea of forms. Oh yeah, there is the Plato quote at the beginning, isn't there? About the island.
I do like. To be fair, that's one thing as well. I do really like the intro, but it was going to be very different, wasn't it?
Bath Time says, Can I just please make a load of money so they can start doing? Oh, can Alien Romulus please make a load of money so they start doing interesting alien films again? Well, I don't know. I think that would give the wrong idea to them if they realize, oh, hey, we can just phone in this movie and just make it paint by the numbers aliens and it gets money. You're just going to get more of that. You're just going to get more references and uninspired storytelling from it. I don't know. I just want it to end. It just needs to stop. I would have been interested to see the Neil Blomkamp Alien movie that was meant to come out, which was going to bring back Michael Biehn, and it was going to basically wipe out. It's kind of what they do with the Terminator films, actually. Hopefully it would have been better than that, where they scrub 3 onwards out of continuity, and it's like, right, no, this is our official sequel to Aliens now. But a lot of the concept art for that looked really cool, and I'd have been interested to see it, but obviously it never saw the light of day. I think Ridley Scott sort of got in there with his Alien Covenant movie to crush that movie's hopes and dreams, I think. And then Bath Time talking about the Lost episode says, and miss episode 3, Walkabout, the episode that hooks everyone. Here's the thing. If I do a watch party on 1 and a watch party on 2, people are going to want me to do... actually, no, I think episode 3 is Tabula Rasa, I believe, which is the Kate episode. And then I think episode 4 is Walkabout, if I remember rightly. So people just going to want me to do all of them. And I could do that as like a long form content on the channel if people want to do that. And we could do sort of like weekly episodes maybe, or 2 a week or something like that. But just for the 20th anniversary, I couldn't commit to more than that, I'm afraid. Right, let's dip back real quick to...
what I said about the intro, though, because that was going to be vastly different, wasn't it?
Yes, sorry. So the character of Milo and everything, the whole concept of his character was going to be different. He was going to be a descendant from Blackbeard, originally, Edward Teach, and then they changed it to make him more of an explorer. And sort of in line with that, you had this item, which is the initial MacGuffin of the film, which is the Shepherd's Journal, which shows the way to Atlantis and all of its secrets and everything like that. And the original opening, you can watch this on YouTube. Today was the first time that I was even aware of this and even watched it. It's fully colored, and I feel like it would have needed a few more tweaks. Like, there is voice acting, there are some sound effects, but there are some moments where it feels a little bit empty, so it probably wasn't 100% finalized. But it's Vikings. It's Vikings using the Shepherd's Journal, and they're trying to find Atlantis. And the Leviathan looks really creepy, actually, in this bit. Like, you don't get a full reveal of it, so I like that they would have kept the reveal till later in the film.
They should have made them Nazis, shouldn't they?
Well, they did. I think Milo later in the film says that there's ships here from every single era, so maybe, Hitler liked his artifacts and history, so maybe he did go looking for Atlantis. But the Leviathan takes down the ship, and the Shepherd's Journal's thrown overboard and falls into the sea, and then you would have had your title screen Atlantis, and we would have gone into the movie proper. The reason that they decided to delete that opening and rework it was because by the time you get to Atlantis, they felt like you'd entered a different movie. You didn't care about any of these characters. You didn't really care about the Atlanteans or really know who any of these characters are. So having the prologue be the initial destruction of Atlantis, and have it be from Kida's perspective and losing her mom, it gives you some kind of emotional attachment to that character. And we know the history, which then reinforces the stuff that later happens where she gets sort of taken in by the heart of Atlantis and everything. So I think it was probably a good call. It was really nice to watch it though, actually. And because usually with these deleted concepts, it is nothing more than that. It's a deleted concept. It's a few little hastily drawn sketches, but this was like a fully animated sequence. I wonder if somehow you could have both. I wonder if you could have like both scenes in there somehow. So you have the destruction of Atlantis maybe, and then you cut to the Vikings so many years later trying to find it, and then go into your opening title. Is that a bit too? It's probably a bit too much at that point, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that would be a bit. It's kind of like, you know, when there's like a movie idea, like sometimes like you read up on movies and they're like, we had an idea, this could happen or this could happen, but you think you can't do both.
Yeah. Let's talk about the characters in this one a little bit more then, because I think we've kind of skirted around that. So let's look at our two leads then. So we've got Milo Thatch, voiced by Michael J. Fox, and then we've also got the character of Kida, voiced by Cree Summer. What do you think to these two?
I think Milo's a fun character. I think he's quirky.
Perfect voice as well, I'd say, Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, I think he's fine. I just wouldn't go much further than fine. It's one of those with any of the characters, but it's kind of like for instance, when we go back to Emperor's New Groove, Cusco, he's a funny character. He's got loads of wit. He's the thing I forgot to mention, which I told you afterwards the review last week, was the when he goes no touchy. That was like the cool. I don't know why, but I always remember as a kid that was just like the funniest thing. But like, you know, he's got funny things. Whereas Milo he's cool. He's not a standout like, oh my god, this is a good protagonist. Kind of like Kida. She is great and she's mystical, but there's better characters like
She's
it.
damn fine.
She is. I had an ex-girlfriend that dressed like Kida once. But anyway, there was you know, she's fine. There are just better characters in those situations, because Milo is your very Indiana Jones, but a bit more kid-friendly. But he's nothing special. It's the same with Kida. She's nothing special. It's just one of those. I think the King of Atlantis, he is probably, I want to say, my favorite. It's mainly the voice. It feels like a cheat to say he's my favorite because of the voice. It's kind of like saying, you know, I love Mufasa because of his voice. It's like, yeah, but it's James Earl Jones. You know, yeah, but it's Leonard Nimoy. It kind of feels like a cheat. Like, how can they compete with him? But I think it's that mystical, wise character that you've got about him, and I think that's great. But I think all the characters are very like, we've seen this before, and it works, and it's great. And I'm not saying they copied anyone, but it's just very surface level.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's really difficult. So Milo Thatch, you mentioned he's sort of very Indiana Jones. I disagree with that a little bit, because Indiana Jones is your action hero. He is the badass. He's the womanizer. He's, you know, the guy who gets it done. He's your badass action hero. Milo really isn't that. He's like a nerdy.
I just mean you Indiana Jones
bumbling
and the treasure. Like that's what I mean. I just mean he's your very Indiana Jones lead in an Indiana Jones style looking for treasure movie. That's what I mean.
Yeah, like I think Michael J. Fox, I think it's the perfect voice for him. He's very energetic. His voice itself is very animated. He's this plucky, enthusiastic guy who's very nerdy and very excited to get out on this mission. And I do like the element of his grandfather, how he's trying to honor his grandfather and continue his legacy, and that nice little moment at the end where he sends proof back to Widmore's character with the necklace with the crystal on it. I like little bits like that. And Kida, I think, is very striking. I like her character, and I like the it's not really fish out of water, is it? Which is a really bad pun for an Atlantis film. But how you just have those moments where you have Milo trying to learn about her culture, and she's really enthusiastic about his, and she's trying to understand their customs and whatnot. It's stuff that you see in a lot of things, again, like Pocahontas in Avatar and things like that. But when it's done well, like it is done here, I really appreciate that. And I do like the inexplicable, mystical side of it as well. Like, you know, they've got all this technology and they're living their life, but then you've also got this almost sentient being, deity almost, which is the heart of Atlantis. And you've got that ancient history to it as well, and that's why I like the world building in this is amazing, and I've never appreciated it as much as I have until rewatching it again. As I mentioned, the fact that they got a linguist and that they built an entire workable language with its own grammar and its own rules, and the fact that if you're reading Atlantean, it gets rid of certain letters of the alphabet and you have to read it from left to right and then right to left and left to right. And they did that to simulate like the flowing of water. Shit like this that no one would notice, no one would care about, no one even knew this was a thing. I didn't even know this was a thing. But I think because they spent so much time on that, building the language, and from that language, Tolkien's a great example. I was talking to you about this earlier. Tolkien started his Legendarium by creating the Elvish language. That's where he started it. It's just because he wanted to make his own language. And from there, and from, you know, all the different inspirations he took from loads of different languages and combined it, you immediately get a sense of history, which you can relate to real world stuff. And that's why Lord of the Rings, like, it was written with the intention of it being a mythology for England. And it does almost, you know, you're aware it's a fictional story, but because it's so well researched and feels so real, it does feel like you're reading like a history book, like this could have actually happened. And I think that all comes from the language, and from there you can sort of create this culture from it. And I get that from it. Like, I'm watch this film and I want to know more about Atlantis, and even the people that inhabit it, they're not aware of their own culture. I think they compared it to Egypt, how, you know, they went to Egypt for research purposes, and you've got all of these ancient artifacts around that surround the place, and people really don't know what they're there for or the history of them. Like, they live amongst it, but they're not aware of it. And it's very similar in this, how Kida, you know, none of them can read ancient Atlantean. Only Milo is the one who's able to do that. And there's this like mosaic, this mural thing under the water that he has to try and decipher. So I like that even though it's an ancient kingdom, there's still loads of history that even the current inhabitants aren't aware of, because it's from like a bygone era of their civilization. And I find that fascinating. These stone giant things, the Guardians of Atlantis, where did they came from? You know, who built them? Were they around from the beginning of it? Like, just stuff like that, and it inspires you. You know, it sets your imagination going.
Yeah, exactly. And it's got, like you said, it's got that real world aspect of it could have been. But that's the good thing about doing Atlantis. It's that, you know, it's the lost city. It's that whole what could have been secret society.
Yeah.
What's it? There's a movie. No, not a movie. Sorry, it's Assassin's Creed.
Which was a movie at one point with Michael Fassbender.
But like Assassin's Creed is like, it's real world based, but on like the secret history of the world. Yeah. So it's this kind of what could have been and what could technically still be, because we don't know, like, it's secret. And that's the cool thing about it. And I think, you know, that works again really, really well.
I've always been fascinated by the story of Atlantis as well. You know, when you go down like a rabbit hole at like 3 a.m. and watch documentaries on stuff, and
Atlantis is in Assassin's Creed as well.
Or maybe that's one I haven't played yet. Which one's that in?
It's DLC for Origins, I believe. I've not played the DLC, but I feel like it was DLC for Origins or Odyssey.
Odyssey, yeah, maybe.
It was one of them. But I haven't played it, but I know it was DLC Atlantis was, so I know it does exist.
Well, I mean, another Tolkien comparison, like, he was fascinated by Atlantis as well, and that inspired one of his main pieces of his history from the Silmarillion is the Kingdom of Numenor, which was a province of man. They were blessed with like long life and amazing technology, like super advanced, and they had their own island, and they wanted to try and overthrow the gods, and their grasp kind of extended their reach, and they were punished by the gods, and the island of Numenor was flooded and was sank beneath the waves, which I love that story in the Silmarillion, and it's great inspiration from Atlantis as well. Did you say? Oh, you did say who your favorite character was. It was the King of Atlantis, right?
Yeah.
Sort of out of your main group, then you know how you've got like you've got Vinny, Sweet, you know, all of those, Mole and everything. Like
Cookie.
out of that main core group, who would you say is your favorite?
I mean, they're all it's hard, you know, because they are all good characters in their own right. But they're all what's his name? The bald guy.
Oh,
Black guy.
Sweet, the medic. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, him. Yeah, exactly. Right. Um I'd say him because he felt like Kronk in a lot of ways. He felt very a bit dim when you first
Really?
introduced to him. No, when you're first introduced to him, I don't know if it's what he said, but you know, with the saw, the
Oh,
thing
where he
that
says like this can cut through a femur in 28 seconds, and then I
yeah,
can
it
hide that
felt
time or
very
something. Yeah.
not maybe dim's the wrong the wrong thing to say, but very kind of a bit like just something I would say. Where you think, yeah, cool, you know, like that sort of thing. And I think you know he's great. I'd say he would stand out for me. But a lot of the characters, they are good in their own right. I just think they're all. Again, it's weird because I just want to say it sounds like I'm shitting on them, but I'm really not. But they're all surface based in the sense of they're all great in their own right, and there's not a single one I'd say I dislike. But I'd say him. I 100%. I would say he stands out for being that little bit. I don't want to say dim because it's probably the wrong word, but you know that little bit off-ish, and he's a bit wacky, and there's a comedy to him, but then he's also the kind of guy. Yeah, I'd say him. He's the one that stands out for me.
There's bits of all the characters that I like. Sweet's definitely one of my favorites. Like I like where they're doing all of the backstories of all of them. And he gets to Mole, and Milo's like, "So what's Mole's backstory?" And he goes, "Trust me, you don't want to know, Audrey. You shouldn't have told me, but you did, and now I'm telling you, you don't want to know." And we still. That's a question to you. What do you think Mole's backstory is?
This is what I mean. This is where you know he has that kind of. Dim's the wrong word, but I'm keep using it because I can't think of another
one. He's very extreme, like in his emotions. Like he's quite zany. Like he's fast talking.
I think zany is probably the right word because he would fit realistically in Emperor's New Groove. You know, he would fit in that world. Not as a main character, but he would fit as if he had a cameo. Like he wouldn't feel too out of place.
Mm-hmm.
I think his backstory is he had a trophy wife.
And we're talking about Mole now, yeah?
Yeah.
Mole's backstory, go.
He had a trophy wife who he killed with a draft excluder. And that led him to where he is today. He was driven a little bit insane, but he keeps plodding on. I think he's got something dark about him.
Yeah, you don't want to know. It's like, exactly. You do want to know, though. Now...
That's what I mean. I feel like he had a trophy wife. And the reason it's like you don't want to know is not just because he killed her, but because it's that whole, like, you know, if you were to have this trophy wife, this amazing woman, and then you killed her for draft excluder, it's like, that's mean, but that's just sad. Like, why would you want to lose her that way? Like, it's just, I feel like that's what happened.
We never get Cookie's backstory, do we? As well,
you know what? I do.
Or Miss Packards backstory.
I do like Cookie. I do. I think
Slinky Dog, isn't he?
Huh?
Slinky Dog from Toy Story 1 and 2. Because he died. He died just before this film was released.
Huh. Oh. I never looked. To be fair, I never actually thought about that.
We got a comment from Carl. Says, "Evening, guys. How you doing, man? How you doing? Good." So like with Sweet, like he does have those zany moments, but one moment that sticks out to me, it's kind of the moment where shit gets real. It's because the King of Atlantis is aging and he looks like he's dying anyway. But Rourke like gut punches him, and it's like a really shocking moment. Like he's just like hit this like really like super like
there's actually blood in this movie as well, like actual, not just a little bit, but actual proper like you know, you can actually see when he's actually from the nose, from the mouth, one of them. You know, you get proper, like it's in your face. It's not just slight, subtle. It's there.
Yeah, with the King of Atlantis, like Sweet's immediately on it because he's the medic, and he's like, "Look, this wasn't part of the plan." And that's when things get serious. And he does have serious moments. He says, like, internal bleeding. There's nothing.
The other thing that makes Sweet a great character, I think, is because he's that stocky, he's that big build. he's clearly, it's that kind of, the big guy that's like a soft teddy bear. He's got
Yeah,
that kind of vibe
yeah,
to him,
yeah,
and especially even with the saw and the thing around his head, he reminds you of, like back in the day, fucking medics back in the day, like surgeons and stuff that would cut you open to be like, all right, let's heal that, and it's that horrific kind of feel that he could have to him, but he's not.
yeah, yeah. No, I really like Sweet. He's definitely up there for me. I do quite like Vinny, the demolitions expert, the Italian guy. And apparently the voice actor, he'd read the script once and then he'd just go off on one and just improvise pretty much everything. And I do get that impression from him, like especially at the end when he's like, sure, some people got hurt, but no one we knew, so things like that. So I think he
Do you know what?
yeah, he's probably one of my favorites. I do like the very monotone. She reminds me of Roz from Monsters Inc. The was her name, Miss Packard, who's sort of on the intercom. And it's the bit right before the Leviathan attack. She picks up this sound and she's trying to hail Commander Rourke, and he's in mid conversation. You just keep hearing her go like, Commander. It's just, yeah.
Who was it that says that line as well? This is one of my favorite lines when where everyone basically gets killed. What is it he said? So who here's still alive or something like that? Like that was just
sound off if you're still alive or something.
Yeah, and I think that I just thought it was quite funny because it was like a casual, like it was the casual kind of, and I could imagine myself that if I was in that situation, I'd probably just say the same thing about, right, hands up, you're still alive, kind of thing, right? Okay, that person's dead, like that kind of thing, and I just thought it was cool, and it's kind of. It felt real worldy to me, and maybe
you could imagine a commander of like a leader of men saying that in like a war situation or something.
That's what I mean. It's like maybe not for everyone. Some people would be more dramatic, but a leader in that position, he would. Yeah, that's why it felt quite real to me, and I thought that was cool.
Well, one bit that like really caught me off guard, and I totally forgot about this, because you have the Ulysses, which is crewed with hundreds and hundreds of men and women. And the Leviathan attack, I fucking love the design for the Leviathan as well. Like that was always like my favorite thing in the film as a kid. Was I loved like monsters and creatures and monstrous things like that. Like the Lord of the Rings films, when I first watched them, my favorite things were like the Balrog and the Watcher in the Water and the Cave Troll. Like I had an obsession with creatures. And the Leviathan attack takes down the whole Ulysses. Handful of the crew members survive. And there's that really poignant moment afterwards where as soon as they've collected themselves, you have the moments where they'll light a candle and put it in a helmet and push it out to the water. And Commander Rourke has like a bit of a eulogy for all the men that they've lost. And I really like that scene. It's just like a really nice, like, it's kind of like you'd see it in like a live action movie. It's like an adult moment, really. Disney films would never really go that deep, I don't think, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's like you get those little moments every now and then. I'm trying to think of the last one that we got. Like, what last Disney movie we had something that was.
I mean, Disney doesn't always shy away from death. I mean, Lord have mercy, Lion King, or
I know. I just mean that kind of left field little bit, if that makes sense. Kind of like Frozen, when they have the gay joke for the the guy with the sauna, and he's like, well, it's not a gay joke, but I mean, he's really overly camp. He's like, yoo, or whatever he says. Like it's that kind of left field a little bit. Like, okay, I didn't expect that. That's kind of cool. Like whereas nowadays they just do it because they want to be inclusive. But you know what I mean.
But I think my favorite character overall, absolutely love her character so much, is Helga Sinclair. I think that's the name, isn't it? The blonde bombshell who's Rourke's sort
of. That's why she's your favorite, because she's a blonde bombshell.
She is, but I love how the character's introduced, because it basically becomes like a noir film. She's in Milo's apartment already. It's very low light, and she's got this very sultry voice, and you've kind of got like the saxophone playing in the background, and it makes me think of something from, like, I say Casablanca, I don't even know if that's like a noir film, but she's like the ultimate femme fatale. You could imagine her being like a smoky bar, and I think she's got this kind of like fur ruff around her. You could imagine her with like a cigarette or something in like those really old timey films, and I love characters like that because they just have so much presence behind them and that alluring quality to them. And she's just a badass. Like, she's just issuing orders and ultimately betrayed by the villain at the end, but she gets one over on him. Like, he throws her a long fucking way off that hot air balloon thing, and then nothing personal, and she just pot shots the balloon before she dies. I just think she's a really badass character. She's one of my favorites.
Yeah, who does she remind me of? There's someone she reminds me of.
Blonde bombshell who's quite hateful. I'm not sure.
No, there's maybe it's like I'm trying to think. It's not like Lara Croft, but that there's a particular character I'm thinking of in my head. But
yeah, I can't place it, but I like the look of the character. It's quite unique. So like the beauty spot, like on her cheek. It's just like the design of the character. It's just so.
I fucking hate beauty spots, man. I really do. I think they turn a woman from a 10 into a 4.
Oh no!
I'm not even fucking joking. But anyway.
But I think it's I was trying to find who the voice actress was for Helga. Where is the name? There's so many characters in this film. I'm just staring at a sea of names right now. Helga Katrina Sinclair, Claudia Christian was apparently in Babylon 5. I don't think I've really seen anything she's been in, to be honest, but really good voice for the character. See, I do like strong female characters, guys, and I like another one in Treasure Planet in a few movies' time with Captain Amelia. She's my favorite character in that movie.
I love strong female characters. Who was the last one? It was Belle. That was it. That was your favorite.
Oh god, yeah, Belle's just perfection. The ultimate idealized version of a woman for me is Belle.
She elbows Zaldin in the stomach in Kingdom Hearts 2, and it's great.
Yeah.
So she's a great character. There's quite a few strong.
Mulan was pretty great.
This is the thing. There's a lot of strong Disney female characters. Like there's a lot.
And they didn't try hard.
Exactly. And I feel now. And I feel now there's less now that they're trying because they're trying to make them strong. It's like, but they don't look strong.
Yeah.
And it's but there used to be quite a lot of strong female characters. That's the thing.
Yep. 100%. Technically, can we count like ones that aren't human? I was going to say like Miss Bianca from The Rescuers is pretty go get 'em attitude, and
I mean, I guess so.
If we extend it into sort of like female characters, whatever, just in general. But yeah, if we're keeping the humankind, then there's loads. Even in the next film that we're going to be talking about, the sister, was it Nani? Is that
Nani?
The sister?
Yeah, Nani.
She's trying to hold down a job. She's looking after her little sister. Like she's, the strength in that.
Exactly. She's cool. I like Nani.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the thing. There's been so many. I think when they haven't tried, because the thing is as well. There's a certain way a female can carry themselves that a male might not, or vice versa. And not trying gets them still carrying themselves in that way. Whereas now, because they're trying to make them carry themselves in a male way, which is all that's saying is you have to be a male to be strong. That's literally the message they're giving off.
Yes,
and it's just fucking dumb because it's not true. But they're trying so hard not to be sexist, but making themselves sexist by doing it. It's really fucked. But.
Mm-hmm. So we just got a comment from Carl here. Says, I'm good, thank you. Just home from supporting a mate who wanted to go speed dating. I ended up taking part. Worst night of my life. Glad I got back in time for the stream. Are you guys okay?
Hey, I will never go.
We've never tried that, have we? Maybe we should see if
I was going to say I never would, but that could be a laugh, to be fair. That could be quite funny. You'd sit there, they'd be like, all right, so tell me about you, and I don't know how long you've got, like a minute, 30 seconds or whatever.
I think it's usually like 3 or 4 minutes. I think it's close to 5. That's a long time.
My first thing, I'd just be like, so who's your favourite Kingdom Hearts character? I don't know what that is. Right, next, let's move on. Like that would be my thing. They'd be like, we still got 4 minutes. I was like, oh, it's fine, I'll wait. I'm cool. Like that would be my thing.
That would be the longest 4 minutes ever, though, wouldn't it? Could you imagine? Because I'd be the same with Lord of the Rings. I'd be like, "Oh, you ever seen Lord of the Rings? Oh, well, I don't really like fantasy. Like, I'm not really into that whole thing."
You'd be like, right, cool, right, we're done here.
I'm done.
It's like, and then you can see the other. You're like, I'm just gonna wait. We're all good.
It's like I don't know what could they be into.
Yeah, exactly. Terrible.
I'm more into Love Island. I was like, oh, can this just end, please?
Of course you are. Of course you are, love. Of course.
Well, I'm glad you got back from that hellhole, mate, and you're in safe hands here with us on this stream. So welcome. Yeah, we're good, man. We're all good. We're talking Disney. We're getting nostalgic. We're watching animated film. It's good, man. It's good. It's nice. I really look forward to watching the next Disney film every week. After my Thursday shift at work, I get back, I get my food, and the first thing I do is pop in the next Disney film for the week. It's my little tradition, and I like it.
I look forward to the ones I've never seen as well. Like, well, there's only been one so far, but like this, as much as I've seen this, like it's an example of one of I haven't seen it in a while, and I look forward to that because it's like, oh, this will be nice.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what it'll be like, and so far I've not been disappointed with, like, for instance, Fantasia 2000. I was pleasantly surprised because I'd never seen it, and I didn't think it'd be good because, oh, I explained before why I didn't think it'd be good.
Yeah.
It would be a copy, but the point is, like, I was pleasantly surprised. I think it's gonna start. It's gonna start changing. I'm probably gonna start dreading them, but that's still a
enjoy the next couple of weeks. I keep saying that. Enjoy the next couple of weeks because it's a slow race to the bottom.
And the thing is, as well, there's a lot on here that I probably wouldn't have gone back to if we weren't doing this. Yeah. Not because it's bad, not because I'll never go back to, but just because you didn't think about it, and it's like, oh, that was really nice to go back to, or like Lilo and Stitch. I mean, to be fair, Lilo and Stitch I actually went back to really recently.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
But it's an example of if we weren't doing this, I wouldn't have thought of it there and then. But because I was in a Disney movie, I was like, oh, you know, it's a good Disney movie, Lilo and Stitch, and it's just a nice kind of like let's feel like a child again. It's great.
Yeah, yeah. Other things to mention real quick about this. So yeah, like the pop song in the end credits, I completely forgot there was a tie-in song with this one. So the song's called "Where the Dream Takes You." It's performed by Mia. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's like Mya, and there's a little apostrophe above the Y. Mia. Just sort of generic pop song, really. We're a far cry away from Celine Dion and Peebo Bryson doing you know, well, what was the name? Vanessa something doing Colors of the Wind.
Do you know what? I'm waiting for the one about you can be whoever you want, love whoever you want, have be any gender that you want. I'm waiting for that song. At the end of what I'm waiting for it.
Maybe they have one in Strange Worlds. We keep forgetting about that one, don't we? But apparently the Japanese release of this film has a different song. It's called Crystal Vine, written by Dreams Come True in capital letters. That's the name of the band, apparently. And that version plays in the end credits for the Japanese release. Interesting. There was a few tie-in things with this one. There was, of course, the McDonald's toys and whatnot, but there was a PlayStation game. Apparently, there were several video games based on the film. There's Atlantis: The Lost Empire: Search for the Journal, which was a Windows game. There's Atlantis: The Lost Empire: Trial by Fire, which was also released on Windows. Then you had the PlayStation game, which is the one that my uncle had, which I remember playing a lot on. I remember the game being all right. If I played it now, I'd probably think this is like absolute dog shit or a complete clone of something else. But he had Atlantis and he had the Treasure Planet game. And I remember he was stuck on one bit. He'd always get stuck on like a really easy part in a video game. He was and isn't very gifted at video games, but he still buys them and plays them. And he'd always get stuck at something. I'd always have to go over and he'd be like, oh, help me out on this level. And we'd get past it and then we'd like complete the game or something. And Atlantis was definitely one of them. I remember it being fine. Anything else to mention about this movie before we round off?
No, I think we've said a lot that we can say because it's very surface level. It's it's great. There's nothing. I wouldn't say there's nothing special because there is, but it's very sort of it's a one watch kind of. It's good and it's special in that time, but it's nothing that goes because when you watch movies, you go, oh, this bit's great, and yeah. But it's not a standout like, oh my god, I'd watch it again and again.
Yeah. I think it's a really solid animated film. I think it sort of pushes the boundaries when it comes to sort of like the use of the CGI integration. It's definitely getting more and more cinematic and more ambitious in what a Disney film can do and the scope that it can be. I like the characters. I think the screenplay is really very strong. I think the only part where it diminishes for me is when we kind of resort to a very cliched bad guy of we want money and we're going to tear this place apart and we're going to sell it to the highest bidder and we're all going to be rich. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, your character's a lot less interested out. I thought we could have come up with a better motive for that. So I do. It does kind of become very trite towards the end of the film, but I think the strength for me with this film is, I mean, I love the score, but just the world building. I think, and they did put a lot of effort into that, and it really shows. A lot of sort of like hidden details that the viewer would never even comprehend had been thought up and put into the movie. And that attention to detail really does go out, stand testament to sort of fleshing out a world and making it feel lived in, and add to that historical quality of it. So it's a solid film, but I agree, it just doesn't have much staying power. And I guess we've kind of highlighted why that might be. But it is a shame. It is a very underrated film, and I probably will watch this again at some point. But even now, I'm like, oh, okay, I've reminded myself of that film. What's next? So I don't know when I'll be coming back to this film, but I did very much enjoy going back to it. It was like watching it again because it's been so long since I watched it.
Yeah.
Just got a couple of comments from Carl, and then we'll round off, I think. Carl says Treasure Planet is so underrated. Also has an amazing song on the soundtrack by the lead singer of the Goo Goo Dolls called I'm Still Here. Yep, that's one of my favorite Disney songs. It's another one of those examples where like a pop song plays over, so it's not actually sung within the movie by a character, but it works really well lyrically, and the attitude of the song really fits for Jim's character. Really heartbreaking backstory, and no dialogue is needed. The music plays out. It's kind of like a music video, and very, very impactful. We'll get to that in a couple of weeks' time. However, Treasure Planet is not the next one. Number 41, going through for a much more well-known one, I'd say. Certainly in this era, at least like last four that we've talked about, Emperor's New Groove, Atlantis, and eventually Treasure Planet. Lilo and Stitch. Definitely the more popular one, and I'd say probably fits the Disney mold a lot more than all of those previous three that I mentioned. It's actually been a while since I've watched this one too, so recently it's been announced that there's a live action version coming out next year, which I could do without, but very wholesome, very nice, very fun, and I mean, Stitch is just a goddamn adorable character, isn't he? And the soundtrack's full of Elvis Presley songs, and I'm a huge Elvis fan, so can't wait to hear some like Burning Love and whatnot in that film. It's going to be great.
You know what? I think the other things to talk about will go into the TV series as well and the sequels, because there was a lot of stuff around it. It wasn't just a sequel, and it's a shit sequel. There was 3 sequels, I think, and a series.
Oh, that was the one thing. Sorry, I did forget to mention that they were going to do a tie-in series with this one after it. It was called Atlantis Team, I think, or something. Let me just double check.
Team Atlantis, go! Like that's what it sounds like.
I swear it was Team something.
Well, like Team America.
It was called Team Atlantis. Yeah, so it was
like Team America. Instead, they'd all put their hands in and go Atlantis. Fuck yeah! that would be great. I want to see it.
Yeah, it was a cancelled spin-off, and apparently they were going to go all in. There was going to be like an attraction at Magic Kingdom in the Disney theme parks, and all of these never went ahead because of the lackluster reception from this movie. But they did release a direct-to-video sequel called Atlantis: Milo's Return, and what that was 3 of the, I guess, like the initial TV episodes that they had fully animated, and they just repackaged them and put it in a movie, similar to that Beauty and the Beast 3. Yeah. That Belle's Magical World. I remember buying the sequel. I had the opportunity to, I think I was on holiday. We went into Woolworths, and I was like, oh my God, Atlantis 2. I never even realized they did a sequel. And I bought that and Basil the Great Mouse Detective. And I passed upon the chance to get Ichabod and Mr. Toad, because that was a really hard to find Disney animated classic. And I got Atlantis: The Lost Empire. It was like a 2-for-1 special or something, or buy one, get one half price. And I picked Atlantis 2, Milo's Return. Got back to the hotel, and in the lounge, they had a VCR player. And I think my parents just said, oh, can you just use the lounge to watch one of his films? And I put Atlantis on, and I think I watched one of the segments and just turned it off. I was bored shitless. I'm like, this is really bad. And then I put Basil on, and I'd never seen it before, and I was like, this is absolutely wonderful. This is great. Loved it, Rattigan and whatnot. So I think it could have worked as a TV series. I mean, the episodes that I watched didn't work because it was terrible and shit, and the animation was kind of really bad, and they didn't get all the voice actors back and
it wasn't
whatnot.
Michael J. Fox, was it?
No, it was the guy. You know, the guy who does the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi in a lot of the animated stuff.
Really?
What's his name? Arnold Taylor, James Arnold Taylor.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So yeah, not good. But apparently it was going to be, they were going to find like a new artifact every week. There was going to be something to do with the Loch Ness monster. There was one on the Kraken, and yeah, Spear of Destiny, stuff like that. Interestingly enough, one of the deleted episode concepts was going to tie it into the Gargoyles TV series. They were going to have who was like the main chick in Gladiators with like the spiky red hair. Do you remember, sort of like the vampiric looking one? But anyway, she was going to be brought into the series. But yeah, anyway, Atlantis: The Lost Empire. That was it. Next week, Lilo and Stitch. Going to be a fun one. So we'll be back Monday next week, usual
Stitch
time.
And Lilo.
Hmm?
Stitch and Lilo. It has 3 sequels: Leroy and Stitch, Stitch the movie, and Lilo and Stitch 2. Stitch Has a Glitch.
Yeah,
and a series, so it has a lot to do with it.
Whole lot of stuff.
And it also had a load of crossovers in the TV series from like Recess and shit.
Well, Stitch is one of the. He's like the Deadpool of the Disney animated kingdom, isn't he? Well, we'll talk about the marketing next week, but those initial teaser trailers that came out as well.
That was probably one of the top.
Yeah. Right, guys, we'll round it off there then. So thank you to everyone who's tuned in and watched along. I'll probably be on some other kind of video, maybe this week if I can. I'm at the cinema this Wednesday watching Spider-Man 3. It's a sold-out screening, so that's going to be really fun.
That one's not that great, though, is it?
It's the worst one of the 3, but it is very memeable, and because it's a sold-out screen, it's only on one day this week. Spider-Man 1 and 2 were on multiple days, and they've only put Spider-Man 3 on one day. So I'll be watching that on Wednesday, and yeah, we'll be back next week. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you next time.